Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Camera with AndyGames. This is the podcast where I interview streamers and content creators with the sole purpose of getting to know the person a little bit better behind the camera. Today's guest, we have LuckyOwl360, Mario speedrunner, just a general Nintendo speedrunner, event coordinator, and full-time creator. Lucky, how are you doing today? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. Thanks again for having me on. I'm super excited.
No, of course. It is very, very nice to have you on. And thank you for taking the time to come on behind the camera as well. So, let's get stuck into the interview. So, take us back to the very beginning. What does your gaming journey look like from pre streaming days leading into you starting to stream?
Okay. So, I think the very first game I ever played was either Mario Kart 64 or Super Mario 64,
Hmm.
when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Um, which is interesting because if you had told me that, over 20 years later, I'd be playing Super Mario 64 still, I think even then I wouldn't have believed you because I didn't really love that game. I didn't really love that game, to be honest. It was fine.
Yeah.
I was more of a Zelda fan and a Pokemon fan personally than Mario fan growing up.
Okay.
I played a lot of Ocarina of Time, a lot of Majora's Mask. I played Pokemon Puzzle League a lot, which I do also speedrun now.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. So I did do a lot of Nintendo 64, and then I'd say the console I really fell in love with was gonna be the GameCube.
Yeah.
The GameCube and the PlayStation 2, that era was peak for me. I loved all of the games that I had on both of those consoles. Um, I usually consider Zelda Wind Waker to be the first game I ever 100%ed,
Oh, nice.
which took a really long time. There's a lot to that game, but I loved it so much that I wanted to play all of it and get everything and do everything you possibly could. So I grinded that as a kid and um, just really enjoyed video games and played anything pretty much that I could. My dad was a big gamer.
Oh, nice.
So we had a lot of games. Um, and I got really into that. And then I think what happened for me is when we started playing Mario Kart Wii, um, that game specifically had the time trials that you could do online and
Yeah.
you could watch the top runners. And that was kind of my first like intro to speedrunning, I'd say. Um, so that I think probably led to where I ended up speedrunning in the end. But well before that, I was interested in YouTube and streaming.
Hmm.
Um, when I was 15, actually, is when I uploaded my first YouTube video in
Oh, wow.
2012. Yeah. It was Let's Play Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Darkness, episode 1 of like 55.
That's so cool. Do you still have that series up at the moment, or is that like one of those things that's like a relic at this point and it's sort of gone for public eyes?
It is unlisted.
Hmm.
I live reacted to the first few episodes on my stream on March 28th because it was my 12-year anniversary of content
Oh,
creation.
wow.
Yes, and we recently I let another creator, in the community react to the first episode on his stream not too long ago for basically to get a subathon incentive going, so,
Hmm.
unfortunately, a lot of my community has now seen that relic of the past.
You know what? It's the only reason I asked about that is because the amount of people who I have like interviewed who have had something very similar where they um they more just like tried content creation and YouTube like back in their sort of like mid teens and stuff like that or early 20s, and they're just like no, and this will no longer ever see the light of day and stuff. That just like they unlist it, delete it, make sure it's gone, untraceable, just because they're like gonna look back. But I kind of think it's one of them things, like you say, you reacted to it like on your stream. I think you have to be kind of proud of those things. You have to just look back and think, well, you know what, this is where I started, and like look back to you know where you started, where you are now. Like, I mean, obviously you've been doing this for an incredibly long time. You say like 12 years, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like consistently like streaming and YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, not I wouldn't say consistently by any means, but yeah, my first Twitch stream was in 2015,
Oh
so that was
wow,
also almost 10 years ago.
it's insane. Yeah, and like you've been doing that. Like, so were you just like what sort of things were you doing like back then? Whenever you were just
Um,
streaming before speedrunning?
yeah, I actually started with Hearthstone.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I love strategy games.
mhm,
That was initially the path that I wanted to go down was gonna be Hearthstone. I was a big fan of Disguised Toast.
hmm,
He's been around a really long time, and obviously now he's, like, really blown up, but I was watching him really early, and other similar creators, and I liked that game, and I just thought it'd be fun to stream it. So I played a lot of Hearthstone, I did a lot of ranked, and the craziest thing that happened to me was a few months into streaming Hearthstone. I was in college and I worked, and then I'd go home and then I'd stream, which is crazy to think of now, because I was just so busy. But there was a day that I was streaming it just like any other. It wasn't anything special. I was just playing Hearthstone, and someone came into my chat, and their name was Forsen, and they were like, "Hey, like, I love what you're doing. You're doing a great job. You should keep it up." And my chat started freaking out, and I was like, "Who is this? Why is everyone like losing their minds?" So I clicked on him, and he was absolutely huge. Like at the time, he was one of the top 10 streamers on Twitch.
oh wow,
Yeah.
insane.
Um, Yeah, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much," like, and I started, like, getting nervous, but then he was, like, already gone. But the thing is, I got really excited about that, but I think something about it scared me because, I think within maybe a week or 2, I stopped streaming
Oh
of
wow,
when that
right,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah,
How
and didn't
come?
again for,
Was
like, a
that
year.
was there what was the like reason behind that, or was that just sort of just like could life just sort of get in the way at that point?
It was a few things. One was definitely yeah, I was busy. I
Mm,
was in college, I was working as a waitress, I had a social life, I had a relationship, I was busy, like, with life, and I was, like, 19, you know?
yeah,
It was hard to do all of that and make the time and, like, deal with roommates and stream and everything. Uh, and I think also I've thought about this a lot because this is, like, a persistent thing that happened to me over the years, where I would start to stream, it would start to, like, maybe start going a little bit well, and then I would stop for long periods of time. Um, and when I was thinking about full-time content creation, I realized honestly that I was just scared. Like,
oh,
this is my dream. This was everything to me. This is the only thing I, like, have ever really wanted more than anything in my entire life, my big goal. And I was like, "What if I do my very best and I really try and I fail? Like, what
yeah,
then?"
of course.
So I think I had this idea in my head for a long time that if I don't really try, like, I can always do that someday.
Yeah, like, do you think as well, like being in the position that you're in, like the time that you sort of got into content creation, like had like a really kind of helping hand in that? Like from 2015, it was you could say it's like the sort of early days of people sort of breaking into like the kind of full-time content creation or content creation sort of as a career. So do you feel like getting into it at that point, even though obviously we're 9 years later, do you think that's definitely like helped?
I think that I've seen a lot,
Mm,
and what's really important to me, and I think something that made me make that decision at the start of this year to finally try it was there were multiple points, that time, 2018, and then 2020, 2021, there were multiple points where streaming kind of blew up and got a lot bigger, and each time I missed out and was like, "Oh, man, I've missed my chance, like, now it's
mhm.
too late." And then it kept happening every few years, and I was like, "Okay." So the thing is, I can feel like I could have done so much if I had started then or if I'd been consistent back then, or I can see it as there's always another opportunity, the best time
Yeah.
to start is now.
Oh, for sure. It's such like a strange like world, content creation, because you could literally make all the content in the world, but it just takes one video, one stream for everything to kind of like blow up in its own way. And then obviously that's when the consistency needs to sort of continue. You need to kind of have like these fresh ideas, do all these different things, put yourself out there. That's when like the real work kind of it becomes a weird reality, because a lot of people put work into their content and it just might not go anywhere. But I think the best way I think to look at it is like, once you do something, it's kind of out there for as long as you sort of choose for it to be. And like people can always go back and find something. You have like a hidden gem of content that you've always liked and been proud of, something you put work into, and then like a 5 second reaction video could be like the one thing that just blows up because of like TikTok's weird algorithm or something. It's kind
Yeah.
of a strange thing. Um, but like, so see, with your content creation and your streaming, like it is, you know, taking you places. Like you are regularly at games cons, do a lot of commentating, events organization. Tell us a bit more about this. How did you find yourself in this space as a result of streaming?
Yeah. So, like we, very, very briefly hit on during rapid fire, I prefer commentary over speedrunning, I think. And my something I always wanted to do really young in life was do some kind of commentating or event organizing or just be a part of gaming events.
Yep.
That used to be esports. I was really into League of Legends and thought maybe I'd work for Riot or something, as a commentator or caster. And when I decided I was gonna get into content creation, take it more seriously, and go for full time, um, the first thing that I really wanted to focus on that I hadn't in the past years was, networking and really putting myself out there in terms of events that I sign up to do.
Yep.
And basically, the end of last year, I tweeted out that if anyone was looking for a commentator in any sort of gaming thing, that I would potentially be good at or have, some sort of experience with or knowledge of, that I was looking for those opportunities. Um, and I was searching on Twitter for people that were like in SM64. I was actually looking at people in League of Legends. I think like Teamfight Tactics as well, which is like it's a game related to League, but it's an auto chess game. Um, and I saw ZS44 was having a 120 tournament soon. And I followed him in December, and there was a day that he drunkenly tweeted the word Mario, and I replied Mario. And he followed me and DM'd me and was like, "Hey, you looking to do commentary, it looks like. I'd love to have you." And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. Yes, let's do that."
Do you know, that is something I can see Z is doing. Just I've only known him a short period of time. Only really had like a chance to sort of pop into his streams every so often over the last couple of months. But like, that's just something I can see him do. Just drunkenly just tweeting something like that. Like he's a cool guy. Like he's so funny.
Yeah, I love that
And there he
that's
is.
like how we yeah, OC
There he is,
is.
just seeing like live in the chat right now.
Yeah, that's my goat right there.
What a
'Cause,
guy.
that started everything. That started where we are now. So,
Mm.
now we do collaborations all the time, and that's, like, one of my very closest, like, I don't know what you'd say, but one of the people I'm the closest to in the
Hmm.
community by far, so
Yeah, and that's awesome, because that's like amazing what like the power of social media in this space is, especially Twitter. I think like, you know, in terms of content creation, Twitter is so slept on. I know Twitter's bad at the moment because of who owns it, and it's a bit of a shit show generally. But like, it's amazing how it can really sort of bring you closer to people generally. Like, I think it's better
Mhm.
than any other sort of platform. You can, you know, you don't know who's going to see your tweet, and obviously with yourself, it all worked out. You just like, look, if anyone's looking for commentary, I'm there, and right place, right time, and like look where that's sort of taken you as well. And like speaking of Zayas, like you did the 120 Mario Relay. It was like your team, Zayas, and Form Frame, I believe. The three teams, 5v5v5.
Yeah, we just did that the other day.
Yeah, it looks so
The
awesome.
community
I've never actually
relay.
seen that before. Like that I like the fact that the things like that open up like the door to so many like collaborations with so many different streams, because in that there was 15 of you guys all across like
Yeah.
a couple of streams, and that's like a big thing. Like, but I think obviously that's probably something that's like second nature to you at this point. Like the fact that you do these like events and commentary, and the fact you've made like a big network just from doing all this. Probably just something that's like a normal stream to you at this point.
Yeah, it's really weird to be in that. I'd say, like, the thing is, the first time that I was gonna do commentary for Zeus's 120 tournament, I was pretty nervous.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was like, "Oh, there's, like, 40, 50 viewers here, like, that's so many." At the time, it seemed, like, overwhelming, and now I'm like, I had Simply on as a commentator for
Wow,
my
yeah.
tournament. He rated in, so we had, like, 1,500 viewers
Oh wow,
at
yeah.
one point. Yeah,
Bet
and
the
I do, like
50
I do
seemed kind of all right after that. Like,
yeah, and that didn't phase me, that's the thing, like, I wasn't nervous at all, and doing collaborations with Cheese, who's, like, the very first, Mario speedrunner I ever watched. Like,
oh,
I
nice.
looked up to him for years, and now it's like, we talk all the time, like, we
Yeah,
have plans for next week.
that's
Like,
amazing.
it's crazy to be at that point, 'cause I never would have ever thought a few years ago that I would be in this and doing this now, like, to that level.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like it is just kind of something that really that you just fall into sometimes. Like, it's like you said, you putting out a tweet one day, and then Z is drunkenly putting out Mario as a tweet. Like, look where that's led you, and like that's
Yeah.
that's insane. That's like so huge. But like it must be like such an amazing thing to like be a part of all of that. Like having like all these connections, networks, and just being able to just create something like with all these like creators. Like that's
Oh, yeah.
like it's definitely the dream for some, and like you said, that was your dream and you've like made it, which is incredible. Um but surely though, on the flip side of that, being a full-time creator, like it must come with its challenges. So what can you tell us about like any challenges that you face in this sort of space, and like what can you tell us about the turning point in your life that allowed you to go full time into content creation?
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. It is a very competitive industry. Obviously, this is like what a lot of people aspire to. Like, so many people want this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it takes a lot of intentional work.
Yep.
Um, and you have to be very thoughtful about how you are presenting yourself. And so, like, even if you want to be streaming, 40 hours or more, 60 hours plus, you have to still think like, okay, well, like, what kind of quality stream am I going to be doing in
Yep.
that case? Like, am I going to be on for my audience today? And if I'm not, like, is that going to be okay?
Yep.
Um, that's, like, definitely been one of the biggest things. I have a lot of personal issues, that kind of actually led into this working out for me, as weird as that sounds. Because I was really established with my professional life. Um, I was doing really well for myself. I was very comfortable in my career, and financially, I was in a great spot in life.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, everyone that I knew thought that I was gonna retire working at this insurance company that I was at, um, as a manager. I was doing really well, and I had moved up in my career really quickly, and everything was going well. They were, like, succession planning for me still to go even further in the
Oh,
company at
brilliant.
the time. Yeah, and it was, like, everything that I thought I wanted, but then I was miserable at the same
Yeah.
time. Um, and I was not doing well. I was pushing myself past my limits physically and mentally and working all day, and my health was deteriorating. And in the midst of that, I saw a Dr. K interview with Squeaks, and they talked about how he got fired from his job and that it was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Mm.
And because all he ever wanted was to entertain people and make people laugh, and it was like that opportunity, like to just go for it. And something about that conversation just like really got to me.
Yeah.
I started crying actually. And I was like, what am I doing with my life, man? Like I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, I know what you mean in terms of that because if you're working a job, like, and I can, like, attest to this as somebody who works 9 to 5, like, there are not enough hours in a day to really kind of get the most out of doing this.
right.
Um, like, work 9 to 5, but then there is obviously more to it than just streaming, as you would know. Like, got to make your clips, you've got to sort of like have sort of your plan in place, your scheduling, everything like that, and just you have to also look after yourself in that regard so you are in like a good physical and mental place to be there as a streamer and stuff like that.
Yep.
But then obviously when you're working like so much, especially if it's like more than just like 9 to 5, then you're sort of just like, I can't do this right now. I can't stream, I can't make content, fuck me, and can't make content. And then you kind of get in your own head about it. It's just like, I'm not able to do something that I love to do. It then like your career doesn't exactly like kind of supplement your hobby. It's just all kind of work. And albeit, yes, like
Yeah.
it's good when you kind of like make bank, but if that's all you have to kind of show for it, then it's sort of what's it really worth in the at the end of the day, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. I was working 7 or 8 AM until at least 7 PM, sometimes 9 PM. I would feel guilty not working weekends, so sometimes I worked weekends, and even when I was on PTO or on vacation, I was still checking my email. It was all the time. It was
Yeah.
everything. It was absorbing all of my time and energy, and there was no opportunity to stream.
Hmm. Yeah, and like it's not healthy. Like I know
No.
that is just a lot of the culture in terms of like sort of the corporate world,
Yep.
but it's no way to live. I think anybody who has like ever worked that kind of office job will know exactly that. And like as much as 9 to 5 sucks, sometimes it's kind of okay to kind of be able to just sort of have, as long as you enjoy your job enough to like have it be able to supplement and allow you to sort of live out your hobbies. And that's kind of like lays the sort of foundation of being able to kind of like take it somewhere else, which I'm sure is probably the sort of same thing that happened with yourself, being able to do it just enough to be able to be like, right, okay, then I'm ready to kind of leave my job and just sort of go for your dream essentially.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would generally recommend people do. I actually had a very different approach because I found that working and streaming at the same time just didn't work for me.
Hmm.
I just could not do it with anything resembling consistency. I mean, we're talking I would do maybe 2 streams and then not stream for 4 to 6 months, for
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
So I ended up in December filing for a leave of absence because, I had an incident and I needed the time, and so I was actually off work until April 1st of this year, and during that time, I said, "I'm going to try to do streaming full time because I have this opportunity. I'm gonna treat it like it's my full-time job,
Yeah.
and if it starts going well," I had these ideas in my head of, like, numbers and metrics that I wanted to reach. "I will consider quitting my job and going full-time," because I did have a lot of savings. Um, and I actually very much surpassed those goals, which terrified me.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I was more than twice what I
Yeah.
had wanted to consider, and I was talking to my therapist about going back to work, and I just couldn't imagine it, and I was like, "Man, this is so scary because 'cause I'm gonna have to quit my job," and I did. I quit effective April 1st and immediately pushed into full-time from there.
Yeah. So it's like 8 months then of full time, which is like, how would you say then that last 8 months has gone since like it was official that you'd left your job?
It's been incredible. It's been amazing. The community's been very, very supportive. The thing that I really wanted to do, that I knew I wouldn't have time for was I hosted my first ever tournament. It was the Coaches and Noobs tournament,
Huh?
where we took, a bunch of people who had never speedrun before or maybe had done, like, a speedrun in, like, a really random game or
Mm-hmm.
something, and we paired them up with people in the Super Mario 64 community that were experienced that wanted to teach, and they had a few weeks together to learn how to speedrun 16 star, and then we put them against each other in a tournament.
That's brilliant. That's such
It
like
was
a
so fun.
unique idea as well. 'Cause I think this year, like, in terms of sort of the circles I run around in, like, it's been like the year of like tournaments. Like I have seen, I think about 4 tournaments done this year just through like different speedrunners who I know and just streamers. But it's all just been very much kind of like the first one was Logan, formerly Daily Gaming. He did one as an amateur 16 star tournament.
Yeah.
Anybody with over 20 minutes who did like actively run the game. Um, that was his tournament. I think he had maybe about 12 people in it or something, or maybe something like that. I think 12 people in it. And then there was one that was a Shotgun Mario tournament, and then a Diddy Kong tournament. And then now there is one that's being run by Sir T Gaming. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but used to be a Mario 64 speedrunner, but now he's since it's actually it's actually funny because it was since I interviewed him on Behind the Camera, that's when he stopped speedrunning. So I'm kind of wondering if the two things are related, but I certainly hope not. But he stopped speedrunning and moved on to like other things. And
Mhm.
he actually has done it. He's like started a speedrun tournament, but it's called the New Run Tournament. And it's like he's gone through every participant's speedrun.com profile, looked at the games they've speedrun, found one that's sort of a similar nature, but isn't is something that's nobody has ran. 2 weeks to practice, and then everyone races. So it's like a sort of like it's a decent concept in terms of that, but like I
Mhm.
think in terms of yours, what you did was that's like such a different thing because you're taking people who've never actually done this game, putting them with people who religiously do it, and it's good for like building communities, and because I think the thing with things like that is like the result is someone will like speedrun Mario for the first time and be like, fuck that, never doing that again. But then
Yep.
on the other hand, they might be, shit, well, I'm addicted to this now. I really want to do this because you'll know yourself how like goal driven those categories are, much to our behest at times. But
Yeah, we had a fair amount of both types of people come out of that tournament, which is exactly what I wanted.
mm,
Um, I really wanted people, especially people that had been part of the community, but for whatever reason, just hadn't taken the opportunity to learn the game and were looking for something, like
yeah,
just like a sign to fall in their lap, and I was like, "All right, here it is." And there were people that had been, like, getting begged for, months or even years to play, and they just hadn't,
mm,
that picked it up, and I found that those were the people that also performed the best generally in the tournament because
yeah,
they had so many roots in the community, and they had always loved watching the game. Um, and those were the people that really came alive. We had a couple of people get 18s
oh
in the
wow.
16 star tournament within that time period of late April through June.
So you got
So,
about 6 weeks roughly, sort of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, wow,
I
better than
guess,
my
yeah,
time.
like 8 weeks or so, yeah,
Shit,
one of them has a 17 now.
that's incredible.
Yeah, and the thing is, there were people that, like, that watched the tournament that were like, "Oh, these people came in, like, experienced already," and then I was like, "No," because I was there for the first runs, and
Mhm.
they were bad. I was there for the 40 some odd minute runs and the
Wow.
30 some odd minute runs, and the people, they're using their Xbox controllers because they don't have an OEM, obviously,
Yeah.
and
Oh gosh.
I got to watch the progression, and for me, with all the noobs, there were 32. We ended up taking I wanted to have 16,
Mhm.
but there were so many signups. I couldn't turn people down.
Yeah, of
I just
course.
couldn't do it. I took as many as I could that were people that fit the requirements I was looking for. Um, and of those people, I think 29 of them ended up actually moving into the tournament bracket itself.
Oh, wow.
Um, Anytime a single one of those noobs was live, I was there in that stream. I
That's
was
brilliant.
there. I was watching, I was supporting them, and you know what? I really loved seeing how much the other coaches were in those streams helping the noobs that were not theirs,
Yeah. That's
constantly
great.
helping them, giving advice, even jumping into a call. The community loves getting people into speedrunning and loves seeing the progression and helping and supporting more than they loved the idea of winning the tournament. And that was everything to me. I love this community.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's like kind of what to me what that says is that like you have you're essentially like it's people helping people grow
Yep.
in terms of whether it be developing a new skill in a game or even just meeting new people and just kind of going about it like that. And I always think that you don't necessarily have to be the best at a game if you are like streaming and in this space, but um it's more just sort of like your community is like a much bigger thing than I think some people realize because like they will
Yeah.
always stay for the person and like any community like they meet so many different people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, people they probably never would have met in like a real life setting, and this is the sort of thing that like brings them together, just like a random love of silly video games.
Yeah. 100%. That was so fun about it. Getting to see people, a lot of people that had never streamed before ended up reaching affiliate
Oh
through
shit, yeah.
the tournament. I tried to always, raid them, and the other community members were raiding them, and
Mm-hmm.
people were just showing up to watch them play and getting to know each other and getting to know these people that have been chatters for so long, like,
Yeah.
getting to know them better because now they're a streamer and now they're talking and maybe seeing them and watching them play. And it was so cool. Like there were so many people where I was like, wow, like you were so amazing. Like I never would have realized how hilarious you are and how interesting you are,
Yeah.
without seeing what you do on stream, and, so that was also really cool.
And were like these people who had like never streamed before, or were some of them like already streamers? What was like the sort of criteria for, as well as obviously not like having really played speedrun Mario 64, but like was it just generally people who were chatters in your community?
I had absolutely no criteria for that. There were many people whose very first stream was their first ever 16-star run or
Mhm.
practice to do their first run. And then we had people that had, a few thousand followers, like more than I did.
Oh, okay.
Um, it varied a lot, and I mean, the thing with the coaches too was the coaches came from everywhere. We had some of the top 16-star runners in the world as coaches in the
Wow.
tournament. Yeah. GTM
Mm.
was one. We had Kano, although they did have to drop because they had some personal stuff come
Yeah.
up. But they did go through the coaching. That noob also went really far. Um, and the thing was, it was really cool to see those people get involved with the community in that way as well, which I think was a new side of them for some people. And then you also had like your people that were in all of the chats and all the communities. I had like one of my mods that doesn't he actually is speedrunning a lot more now, but can be very intermittent, but is passionate about coaching and helping others. He ended up coaching to the point that his noob ended up having a better time than him by the end, and they ended up winning the whole thing.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Student surpasses the master. You love to see that kind of story right there.
It was really fun because we got to have I had a few, like, little for fun events that I sprinkled out throughout my tournament, and one of them was coach versus noob, and they did a
Mm,
best of 3.
brilliant.
Actually, I think we ended up going to a best of 5, and the coach did win.
Yeah.
But the PB bop happened again shortly after.
Mhm. Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of like the bigger victory in the end, isn't it? For like the winning just the tournament rather than like the sort of coach v new best of 5. Still, that's incredible. Like, and how did you come up with the concept of that tournament? Like, just because that's I'm still kind of blown away with that concept. I think it's brilliant.
So, honestly, that was, I think, a big part of why I wanted to really get into streaming is I have always had, like, ideas for events that I wanted creators that I watched to do.
Yeah,
There were so many things where I was like, "Oh, it'd be so cool if they did this. It'd be so cool if they did that." I've just always, like, liked thinking about events and challenges people can do. And, people I actually send emails to these people. I used to do that, and it's so embarrassing now, but I would be like, "Oh, you should do this thing, and here's how it would work, and here's, like, a general idea." They've never answered those, of course. But I was like, "Man, you know what? I should just do these things myself." And, the concept of having people learn a speed run and then do it with, like, no experience to see how it would go was just something that I had thought of for a while. And I actually ended up talking to Zeus about it, like, as a very, like, I wonder if this, like, kind of idea would work or something, like, something that I was interested in, like, quite a while before, I'm pretty sure. Um, and then when I started thinking about full time, that's when I started really trying to flesh it out, and I was
yeah,
like, "You know what? I think I wanna do this." So I talked to, I think, like, 3 different tournament organizers and was like, "Here's the general idea of what I wanna do. What are some of the pitfalls? Like, what are some things that you think I should do? I'm thinking maybe this or this. Like, should I have a prize pool? Should I not?" And got, like, all their different perspectives on how to do those things and how they like to, get signups, for example, or promote or, handle issues, set up a Discord, all that stuff.
yeah.
I collaborated heavily with existing community tournament organizers to get to the point where the tournament was ready to be announced, and we ended up just running with it.
Yeah. Like, and I think it's really good. Like, I think what I like about what you said there was you have all these ideas like, oh, you should do this, but then now that you're full time, you're the one going ahead and being like, okay, well, it'd be cool if somebody did this, so I'm going to be the one to go and do this. And I think
Yes.
that's like I think that's like an absolutely crucial mindset to have in terms of content creation. And I think there's not enough people who do that because I think you find, especially with like a lot of like established sort of streamers, they're very set in the ways because all they need to do is just get behind their screen, just hit start streaming, and that's them,
Yep.
you know. But just like, having the wherewithal to be like, it'd be cool if like someone did this. But it's always nice to sort of have your name on that kind of thing as well, because it's like your idea, you're going to do it. So then,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's incredible. So like, do you have any more like tournaments upcoming like in the new year, or what's like sort of your general plan like going forward for like the short term, we'll say?
Yeah, so that tournament was the single, like, best accomplishment I've ever had in my entire life. It's the thing I feel the most proud of.
Hmm.
And although it's stressful, I loved organizing and putting on that event. I
Yeah,
just absolutely adored it. So I will be continuing. My goal right now is to do, like, at least one actual tournament every year. And I did the last one around spring last year, so I probably will wanna do another one around spring this year. People ask a lot if I'm gonna rerun the Coaches and Noobs tournament, and they really want that, but I think the thing for me is that I don't want to become established as someone that does the same thing every year.
yeah,
Um, I have a lot of ideas and things that I wanna do. A lot of that stuff is in the SM64 community, and a lot of it's not. Some of it's speedrunning related, some of it's not. It is all gaming. So, I'm gonna continue doing stuff like that, and I am, thinking about a lot as we get towards the end of this year, like, what I wanna do next year. But right now, in the short term, I've just been very focused on collaborating with people, I've been doing community events. We just did a community Among Us last night
Mhm.
with a ton of other creators in the space and, just community people that I know, from chat, and it was a lot of fun. Um, I'm doing, like, my Ocarina of Time co-op randomizer next week with some people in my community and also with Cheese. Um and I'm just doing a lot of collab stuff right
Yeah.
now, but yeah, event organizing, being a part of events as a commentator, going to, like, PACE, going to in-person events, those are all things that are very important to me, and that's, like, a primary thing I'd say that I'm interested in long term.
Oh, 100%, yeah. I love that as well because I think collabs are so important. Like, there's so much fun, and I don't think you see enough people doing them. Like, I
Yeah,
think especially in, like, the Mario 64 space, I don't think you see, like, enough people do there's, like, so much room for that, for, like, creators to make something incredible happen, but I don't think enough people do it. Like, that's what I was saying the other day when I raided Indie and I saw your relay, like, I was like, "That's, like, a really cool concept." Like, I haven't actually, like, heard or seen anybody do this before. Like, it's just awesome, and I think, like, more people should just take that time to, step away from, like, whatever speedrun they're doing and just be like, "Oh, yeah, let's do this." And I think as well, I don't know if it's because it's the end of the year, but there is just something about, like, November, December time that kind of is just like, wind down for the year, start thinking into next year, just, like, work on
yeah,
collabs, just, like, have fun with other streamers, whatever it is you may be doing. If even if it's, like, something outside of, like, your wheelhouse, like, Content Warning, Lethal Company, the games like that, just that are a bit of fun. Just you don't have to
yeah.
really think too much about, you just have to just enjoy. Yeah, I really think that, like, not enough people do that, and it is, like, so like, it is just such an important thing to, like, bring people together. Like, I think, like, it shouldn't really necessarily just be, like, gated communities with different streamers who do, like, the same thing. Like, it always should just be, like, open for, like, every single person. Like, I think everybody should really kinda, I don't know. I think more people need to kind of do more with others is really the point of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that there are a decent amount of people in the SM64 community that are doing things like that. Like Form Frame was the one that
Mhm.
invited Zeus and I onto the relay, and he's doing like a Super Mario 64 games that we're all gonna be like it's like 8 teams that we're doing in
Yeah.
December. He does a lot of stuff like that. Zeus, of course, I do. And there are other creators that are doing a lot of, like smaller scale, collabs with just like a few people. I think that a lot of it is just making sure that you're putting that out there because I think a lot of people won't realize
Yeah.
that those things are even happening. Um, so that's, I think, something that would really benefit the community as a whole is just improved awareness and
Mhm.
making sure that, those things that are out there, are known to people. Because my tournament got as big as it did because so many people, like, saw the tweet and it got posted in the Super Mario 64 Discord, and I was posting on the community bulletin board, and I was posting it everywhere, and I was talking about it. So a lot of people just had awareness of it, and that's how it got to be as big as it did.
Yeah.
So I think things like that are really important.
Do you think as well, like, in terms of that, do you think people maybe put too much, like, stock into, is this gonna benefit my platform? Is this gonna do anything for me? Like, when it comes to doing collabs, and that's why maybe they don't, because they're too worried about the result of it in compared to, like, whether it's gonna be fun or they're gonna enjoy it or not.
Yes and no. I do think some people definitely worry, especially if you try to branch outside of
Mhm.
your speed game. I know, like, with the Mario community, the support is so strong if you're playing Mario. and I think it's really scary for people to branch outside of that, but
Yeah.
I have found, personally at least, people have been very open and willing to do things, if it sounds like it'd be fun for them and it sounds like, maybe it's something their community would enjoy. They've been
Yeah.
pretty open to trying, because a lot of the collabs that I've done recently have not been Super Mario 64, which has been nice. I think sometimes people worry just that they're gonna get, like, a no or not
Yeah.
an answer from someone, but my experience has been even top members of the community when I was not known were at least willing to respond to me and say, "Hey, like, I'm not interested right now, but thank you so much for thinking of me."
Yeah.
And a lot of people said yes. So, you just have to be willing to put yourself out there is the thing.
I
I think people are
totally
like,
agree.
"Oh, yeah,"
Yeah.
"Oh, that person's not gonna answer me. They don't have time for me." But then they do. They're like, "Oh, I'd love to," because we all wanna play video games, like, we're all doing the
100%.
same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I 100% agree with you. You do need to put yourself out there. Like, that's really how you get shit done. That's how you get people to know you.
Yep.
I know, like, I do think people do get too much in their head sometimes with that, in terms of like, oh, I'm not going to be worth their time. It's going to ruin my credibility. It's like, no, the worst thing somebody could ever say to you is no. And that's not even a bad
Yep.
thing. That's just literally, what is the result of that? You're back in square one. You're back where you were before you sent out an email, before you sent out a DM, whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
If you don't get a response, it's kind of like, fine, that's okay. You just move on. And you know what, that's actually something that I learned from doing this, is just, don't be afraid to reach out to people, because you never know who is willing to do what, kind of thing.
Yes.
And
100%.
it turns out most people are willing to do a lot of things, more so than you are actually would ever believe. And it's insane. It's incredible. And like, it's just
Yeah.
such an amazing thing. And I think it's something that so many people miss out on, just because they get in their own head a little bit. And it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame, because like, I think there's so much like untapped potential with like a lot of streamers, like on a general level, because of that.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think that a lot of people, um, they either, like, they undervalue the power of networking or they just don't feel like they have the skill set.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd say really it's one of those things that comes with practice. I was DMing people and asking them to do things long before I had any right to. And you get used to it, and over time you kind of figure out like, okay, what can I do that would like potentially provide value to this person or might be interesting to them. And you just keep making those moves and you keep asking and people will start to say yes.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and I think how you present yourself and sell yourself, in a sense, also goes a long way, depending on like who you're asking
Yes.
and stuff like that. Because like for me, like, I was kind of thinking, I asked Bubsy, and I interviewed Bubsy on this podcast before, and like,
Mm.
I was in my head for about like a fucking week before I even asked him. I was thinking, no, 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 he's fucking too big. He's too big. He's too big. So I was like, nah, do you know what? He says no. He says no. Who gives a shit? It's just, you
Yep.
just have to go out there and tell people what you're doing. And you know, um, and I don't know if you find the same thing. I'm sure you probably have, but like, whenever you reach out to somebody in terms of a collab, they're actually grateful for the fact that you thought of them.
Yes, all the time. I
Yeah,
get that. Whether I get a yes or a no, I always get a thank you so much for thinking of me.
yeah. Like, it's so nice. It's always like such an unexpected response, but it's like, that's like the nicest thing. And
It is.
I was kind of, yeah, I was like kind of almost like shocked. But yeah, I just think it's, yeah, live up to your potential as a streamer is really the kind of message. Just, if you want to work with someone, ask them, do it. That's kind of like why, when I do the quick fire questions, I always round it off with, who's your dream collab? Because I just think it's always a possibility. It's never impossible. Doesn't have to just be a dream. You can always like kind of make it become a reality. Like, I'm sure, like, had I asked you that question a year ago, it might have been a totally different answer, and it's probably somebody that you've already done a collab with at this point now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. It would have changed over the years. There probably would have been a point where it would have been cheese, and now
Yeah,
I'm, doing those. So,
yeah.
yeah, you gotta start somewhere, and you have to really believe in yourself. You
Hmm.
have to. That's the only way, because no one's gonna believe in you more than you believe in yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you kind of, in terms of streaming, it starts with you and it has to just continue that way. It like you can't really let anything else sort of dictate what happens, who you work with, who you do this and that. It's actually funny as well when you
Right.
mentioned cheese because I spoke to BL Juggler a few weeks ago. He's another Mario 64 speedrunner, and that was his answer was cheese as his dream collab, which is like,
Oh,
this is
wow.
kind of this is kind of cool. Like he's a popular man.
Yeah. Yeah. Small world. Cheese is great. He's a
Yeah.
lovely guy.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy watching him. He's a hoot. Like, um,
He's
s-
hilarious.
yeah. So let's take a step away from streaming just for a second. So, and obviously, you being a full time creator, space takes up a lot of your time. But like, take all of this out of the equation. What are your hobbies and interests outside of streaming, gaming world, and perhaps something that your own community may not know about
This was the hardest question
you?
when I saw.
It
I
always
was
is
like
for everyone, and that's why I love it. Not gonna lie.
I was like, "Oh, no." Like, besides streaming, and you mean, like, being in Twitch chat all the time? I would say I'm someone that I cycle hobbies.
Mhm.
So, I've had phases, like, I got really into painting for a
Oh,
while.
nice.
I got really into gardening. I grew sunflowers for a minute. I once raised butterflies.
Oh,
That
wow.
was fun,
That's cool.
and released them. I like Legos. I don't know if my community knows that. They probably aren't surprised, but I actually get really into Legos. I have too many. Um, man, there's been so many things. I used to really love reading, and I wanna get back into it. I used to absorb books, like, I used to read hundreds of pages a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was big into reading, especially, like, any kind of, like, fantasy, like dragons
Yeah.
and old world stuff. I loved that.
No, that's awesome.
And yeah, and then a lot of gaming too. I don't game as much outside of stream anymore, but
Yeah.
strategy games, especially like Teamfight Tactics was my biggest one, Hearthstone Battlegrounds, Classic, all kinds of stuff like that. A lot of gaming.
Mhm. No, I like that, like, because that's why every time I ask this question, people either are just like, "You know what? This is my hobby. This is my life. I live out my hobby." Other people are like, "Well, shit, what are my hobbies? I don't know." So it's but, like, the fact you cycle through them, like, I think that's, sometimes when you have time, sometimes it's just like, "Okay, I wanna do this," and then you kind of find something else, and you kind it's just kinda yeah, and, like, I think that's good. Keeps you kind of like your mind active and always thinking of like on to the next thing and just like maybe it's just that like proactivity that you have in you embedded in you as like a sort of full-time creator with all these ideas for your tournaments and things like that and events. Like I think it's
Mm.
awesome. Um do you have though like one game that you just have as a strict offline game that you would just be like I'm never streaming this. This is only ever going to be offline for me.
Oh, it's hard to say that there's a game that I would never consider streaming, but I
Mhm.
will say that I've found myself to have a hard time playing games casually on stream
Yeah.
in general. That's very hard for me. I tried doing Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, and I was, like, immediately stressed, and I was like, "I don't think I can play this on stream because I am just, like I am so in my head about what I should be doing because I feel
Yeah.
like I'm not doing enough because 'cause I'm not speedrunning."
Speedrunning ruins it sometimes, doesn't it? Like, you play a
Yeah.
game, and if it's something similar to like think something you've speedrun before, or something that you think this is speedrunnable, you're like kind of walking through the game. It's just like, oh, this is nice, and then you kind of think, wonder if I can clip through there. I wonder if I can do this. I wonder what the strat is. It's like it just fucking ruins like normal gameplay sometimes. Like, I mean, obviously there are things you can generally, but like it is things like I think Mario just like because it's like it's got that association with speedrunning. Like any Mario game, no Mario game is safe now for casual gameplay anymore.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah, I wanna learn Sunshine next. I did Blooperless, which is like, an entry level trick for a relay at
Hmm.
pace. and I was like, "Man, this was really fun." The movement was really good. I kinda wanna try speedrunning Sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a few Sunshine ones before. They're pretty good. Like, I think you kind of have to sort of like in terms of Sunshine, because Sunshine was like it was a very good game, but I think it's kind of polarizing at the same time because it's like really weirdly difficult.
Yep.
Um, so I think the speedruns is one of those things you have to just learn. I think people put like a lot of time into learning it because if you
Yes.
kind of try to just sort of go in, like, because I know you recently started running Luigi's Mansion as well. Um,
Yes.
I think whenever the first time I seen you like run a Luigi's Mansion, I think you were maybe only like 2 weeks in or something like that. But I think like with Sunshine, I think people put like just a lot of like work into it, like offline, just be like, I'm not doing it because people rage out of that game. It's just it's fucking crazy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen there's a lot of overlap, in the community, and it just so happens to be, like, the pocket of the community that I'm in. A lot of them
mhm,
have run Sunshine in the past, and it seems like they tend to find it easier to stick with SM64 just as a
yeah,
speed game because of how frustrating Sunshine can be.
yeah. That's not to say Mario 64 isn't frustrating because you and I both know it is.
Yeah, it is.
That's why I don't really do it anymore all that much. I just kind of was just like, no, I can't do this. I would almost rather play it casually at this point, but obviously I
Mm,
can't. Like the speedrunning
right.
slut in me is just seduced every single time. Like it's just so bad.
You know, that's actually why I was really scared to speedrun Luigi's Mansion.
Hmm.
Um, I put it off for a long time because 'cause I've been watching the runs for it's been like 8 years probably. And I got to know the run really well, and, there's another community member that they do SM64 and they do Luigi's Mansion, and when he was working on learning some new stuff, I said something about positioning in one area, and he was like, "Why do you not speedrun this game? You clearly know a lot about it." And I was like, "I don't wanna ruin my favorite game."
Yeah,
I don't know, because once you learn, you can't unlearn, that's it, no more casual.
yeah. That's it. Like, because that would be a game that like I think if I was to play it, I'd do it casually. But I know, having seen like you doing it and other people doing it as a result, I'd be like, I think I kind of want to give this a go. It's
Oh, you
just what
should.
it does. It's just what speedrunning does. And like, if anybody like listening has never speedrun a game, don't, because you will never look at games the same again.
Yeah, I
uh,
would say if there's a game you love playing casually a lot, maybe don't start with that as your speed run
yeah,
because you can't undo it.
yeah. Start with something that like you are happy enough to, if it doesn't work out, to never play again in your life.
That's why I started with SM64.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why I started. But like Mario 64 was like my favorite game growing up, and I was just like kind of I didn't know what speedrunning was until like last year, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, and that's how I started it. Like but not that it killed it for me, but I needed to take a break because it just
Yeah,
is that kind of like crazy. But like I mean, to echo like what you have said, like the community within like all like Mario 64, it's incredible. Like for the most part, absolutely incredible people, and people are like always willing to kind of help.
mm,
People learn, people are always trying to get to know other people. There's like this sort of
yeah,
mutual respect in terms of like what they do, and it's nice because I think it's hard to kind of like separate from when you're in it, which is like cool, despite the fact like every single person has their own individual grievances about the game and others, but it's no, it's nice, and it's always like a nice sort of people helping people kind of vibe, which is what you want in this space.
100%.
Um, yeah. So lucky, I just have one final question for you today. So being a full time creator, absolute dream for so many people, and it's something you have achieved and are absolutely thriving in, which is amazing to see. So, what advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to live out their own dream as a full time content creator?
Um, I would say that if you want to be a full-time content creator, you have to really, really want it. Um, for me, I would say I ended up finally making this decision because I legitimately could not imagine myself doing anything else, and I walked away from the my entire life, basically. My entire lifestyle has changed. Everything has changed. And while I'm, full time, this is what I'm doing, and there's been like a month here and there where I've broken even. Usually don't. And I had to save a lot to get to this point. So I'd say you have to be really willing to like think about, the sacrifices you're willing to make
Yeah.
and also understand that you're never going to feel like you're doing enough. For me, I do feel like I've had a really good year and it has in a lot of ways surpassed my expectations for my first year. Um, because I making my plan, I was very intentional about based on the income that I had and what I had saved and what I was making as a creator. I kind of had this idea in my head of how long I can sustain that at the current level that I was at and where I expected to be. And it takes so much work. Like you can't just I think that people do get to a point when they get really big where they can coast. But until that point, like you are going to be grinding and
Yeah.
grinding and always trying to do more and always working on the next thing because you have to keep people invested and keep them coming back and keep, provide the entertainment that they're there for. Um, so you have to be really willing to put everything into it. It's in no way an easy job.
Yeah.
So it has to be like serious. And I'd say if the idea of it becoming like work and going through all of that like doesn't sound appealing to you, I think that streaming is also an excellent hobby and there's nothing wrong with aspiring for it to be just something that you love doing on the side and having like a community of people that you're familiar with. I think that everyone's individual goals are different. But yeah, if you want this and you want to make it happen, you absolutely can. But be ready for it to take a lot of time and work and at a lot of points feel like your efforts are not being recognized or paying off in the short term. It's like watering plants. Sometimes they just don't grow. And you have to keep going despite that and you have to keep pushing for it. And I think if you really work at that, then there's that opportunity that can come up and make sure you just say yes to a lot of things too, is the other thing I'd say. I always take opportunities. Like if someone wants to do something and it sounds like something I'd be interested in, I just say yes. I'm like, all right, yeah, we're making it happen. What are we doing that? I'm
Yeah.
super down and asking people to do things too. Don't just wait.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like networking is like a massive thing of it. I know we did discuss this earlier, but networking is huge. Just
Yes.
saying yes to things as well. Especially when you're starting out, surely it has to be an important thing. Now, it's not to say yes to everything, but obviously if it
Yeah.
makes sense with what you are in line with the things you enjoy doing, the things that you do, generally things like that. Like um because this is the sort of thing I don't think like there's no point in like putting too much thought into like, oh, this is going to benefit me. It's like, no, I fucking enjoy it, this will be good. Put my name out there with like different kinds of people, like, and of course when this is your job, there were certain things like that where you would have to do that. You have to kind of like get your name out there, like as much of a benefit as it's just like getting more people in the door, getting more people knowing you. um and plus, like, taking all that away, like, think about the sort of friendships that you make in terms of doing that as well. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, it's kind of, you get paid to do something that you love with people that you're incredibly fond of. Now,
Yeah.
of course, like, like you say, like, this is a brilliant hobby. And that is like the stage I think that most people are at with it. Now, of course, like, there are people who do want to kind of like, they're in a position where they would think, okay, this is a possibility. um,
Yes.
do you think that sometimes people get like in their own head too much in terms of being like, right, well, you know, I'm comfortable where I'm at. This is just a hobby, but if I do, is it kind of like, do you think that people are stopped by doubt? Really, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, 100%. Yes. There are so many talented people that I know that they don't fully believe in themselves, and it's actually, like, painful for me when I see someone that's really entertaining and they do have dedicated community members that want them to keep coming back, and then they don't, stay
Yeah.
consistent, or they don't take those steps because they're definitely, worried about, don't not they don't feel like they're good enough or entertaining enough, or they don't feel like they deserve it. It hurts because
Mhm.
I'm like, you can see it in people, you can see it, and it's you're gonna be your own worst critic. It's easy. Like, I haven't really talked to anybody that I know that's a creator that, like, loves the sound of their own voice. I hate listening to myself talk. And you're always gonna look at, what you've produced and be like, "Oh my god, I did this thing. I don't like that I do this thing." And, like, other people aren't looking at it that way.
Yeah,
They're there for a reason. It's
100%.
not like they're not there because they feel bad for you. Like, they're there because you interest them in some way? So
Yeah,
I think just you have to, like, own that, and you have to say, "You know what? There is something people like, and I'm gonna do my best to make it work." I think you have to have a little bit of, I wouldn't say, like, an ego necessarily, but you do have to really believe in yourself,
100%.
because if you don't, I mean, you're just guaranteeing that you're not gonna make it work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, at the end of the day, like, the reason that people start doing this is because they want to do it. They and I think that kind of ties into like people doing it for the right reasons, because I think you see like a lot of people who get into streaming for the wrong reasons. They see people being successful as full time creators, just think, "Do you know what, I could do this," and they kind of
Oh, yeah.
invest so much into it for it to just sort of be like not really work out the way they think. Or people have like a bad month and like they maybe just hit the threshold of a payout on Twitch, and they're kind of like, oh well, shit, maybe this isn't kind of. It's like, well, no, you just had a bad month. Do you
Oh,
enjoy
yeah.
playing games? Are you doing it for because you enjoy it, or are you doing it because you want the money?
Right.
That's kind of, I think sometimes people do get to the point where they need to ask themselves that. Of course, like yes, it's nice, and it does. It does go. It's good to have for it to go back into the stream and stuff like that, into your content, things like that.
Right.
But yeah, like I mean, I think as well, people just need to kind of think about why it is that they do it. Like, why do they want to do it? Like,
Yeah.
and surround yourself with the right people too. This I think is definitely a good thing to do. Um,
You have to. I think that the community is 100% essential. I would not have made the decision that I did if I didn't have people telling me that they believed in me,
yeah.
and helping me get to that point where I could believe in myself, because I definitely didn't growing up. I definitely didn't think that I was capable of this. You have to be the kind of person that you want in your life, and I think that attracts those kind of people to you, and just being very genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you are gonna have bad months.
Oh.
I've had some bad months. The month after I finished the tournament was hard, because I was getting used to a certain, certain metrics and certain things, and I was like, "Man, we're not there anymore?" But you don't take that to mean like, "Okay, well, it's over." You
No.
don't you it's not, you don't take that as like, "Okay, well, this is, it's not gonna work out." Like, you just keep going. You're like, "Okay, what can I do to be better next month?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like I think every month, whenever you're streaming, you need to kind of take as like a sort of like look at the analytics, take it as like a learning curve. It's like, okay, what did I do this month? Okay, what did I kind of, what could I do better? Is it to do with the content? Am I putting out enough videos? Am I promoting myself? Because like streaming is only kind of half the job. It's like what you do around that to kind of complement your streaming to across all your platforms. How are you going to get people to come and watch your streams? Like your content, your clips, everything, and talking to people, going into other people's streams, like tweeting out, replying to tweets, things like that. Like it's
Yes.
even if it is just a hobby, I genuinely think like it is no matter whatever way you want to look at it, like I think that there is elements of it being a job, even if it's your hobby, depending on what your goals are. I know that that's
Yeah,
definitely the case for me anyway. Like I do treat this like a second job for myself, and in the best possible way. Never just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I have to stream again, because it's just like if you don't want to, you don't do it. It's like you
right,
have that benefit where unlike your actual career, you have that benefit of being like, okay, I can't do this today. I'm not going to. Whereas obviously, if you do that in your real life job, then you get fired.
right.
You know. But yeah, but yes, Lucky, it has been an absolute pleasure interviewing you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on behind the camera. Do you have any final thoughts for the listeners today?
I just really appreciated being on today. This was a really good conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and it's always nice to think about, where things started to where they are now. It's easy, I think, to get like used to things being a certain way and feel like
Mhm.
it's kind of always been this way, but the reality is, for years I streamed to an average of like 3 viewers, before I started networking and getting to know the community and being consistent. So yeah, you can absolutely make a ton of progress in a short amount of time if you really want to. I started this year with like,
Yeah.
yeah, 3 average viewers. I had 100 followers and things have obviously changed since then. So definitely believe in yourself and definitely surround yourself with good people that will be in your corner and support you because the community is what's going to keep you going through the hard times.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely solid words of advice there. Yes, thank you so much again for taking the time to come on behind the camera. It's been wonderful having our chat. Really enjoyed it. My name is AndyGames underscore 94. My guest today has been LuckyOwl360. We'll be back again with another installment of Behind the Camera with Andy Games next week. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in and take care. We will see you next time. Peace.
Thank you.